everyone, my name is Alicia J. Novo, and my book UNWRITTEN will be coming out May 8, 2021. And I'm really excited to welcome everyone to this Q&A. We're gonna be going through a list of questions, and please stay with us till the end of the video. We're gonna talk about the giveaway and what you need to do if you decide to participate in that. So when I was a kid, I loved books. I was already in love with books and I read all the time. And I think everyone who loves books knows the feeling at the end of reading like a great novel where you feel like reality around you feels less real than the book. And the people in them, you're already missing them. You want the book to keep going just so you can hang out with them and share your secrets and then, I don't know, have a cup of coffee with them. So I created this world in my mind where characters went after the stories ended. And I could have go on a quest with them, or they could be an adventure, or I could tell them about what was happening in my life. And of course, I didn't think about this for a long time. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but I ended up choosing a much more practical path. I ended up studying economics, and I went on to be a technology executive, and I really enjoyed all that. That was all great, but deep inside, I always knew writing and stories were my passion. So a few years ago, I finally decided to sit down and write a novel, and this idea came back to me. And I still felt this about books. I still could remember so many stories that stayed with me after I read them, and I still wanted and wished that some of these characters could be my friends. So I went ahead and created the world of UNWRITTEN. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Zweeshen and how that works. And of course, that original idea evolved and changed, and the Zweeshen became a lot more complex, a lot grayer, and a little bit more challenging than it was. But the idea itself, the concept, came from when I was a little kid. So the Zweeshen, like I said before, the Zweeshen is a world where characters from stories live. And the idea is at the end of every book, characters get released and they get to interact with each other, they get to travel, and they get to go about their lives like every other person. What's interesting about this world is, of course, characters come from different genres, from different books. Some of them are celebrities from beloved novels, some of them are from lesser known stories. And so it created a very interesting, very diverse, very hodgepodge type of world. It's full of wonder and magic and fun, but it also has kind of a dangerous side and a dark side. And like books and real life, not everything is perfect. As Beatrix Alba, who's the character from UNWRITTEN, discovers when she crosses in to start her adventure. I started writing this book about 7 years ago, and I know it sounds like a very long time, but I feel during that time, a lot of other things happened, and I actually wrote 3 different versions of UNWRITTEN. And I am convinced that this version that is being published is the crystallized best story. And so the process to me was a little bit of an exploration, not only to learn to be a better writer, but also to evolve and to change. And some of my ideas about what I wanted to express with this story have changed as well. I feel like the last few years have been very tumultuous, and a lot of the concepts that were very subtle in UNWRITTEN at the very beginning, things like bullying and discrimination and the need for tolerance and acceptance of what's different, was there in the original novel, but a little bit more obvious and are a bigger part of the plot in this final version. Overall, I think I have evolved during that time, and I am very happy with where the book ended up. My favorite part, without a doubt, is writing. I enjoy everything about the process. I've always loved books, like I said before, and I love writing, I love editing, I love even working through the tough parts when you get bad feedback and you're going through problem solving, when you hit a plot hole and you realize you have to redo a bunch of stuff. I don't mind any of that. I actually really enjoy it. What I like less is some of the other parts of being an author. I think for me, as a debut author, and someone starting later on after a different career, I had to go through the process of starting over in many ways. I had to find an agent, and that's extremely hard to do. I had to then find a publisher. And then you have to work through all the different details and different obstacles. You have to figure out, your cover, you have to work through your editor, you figure out some things are not going to work out. So going through that is a lot tougher than the actual writing. And I think the marketing portion, that's something that doesn't come as natural to me. Putting yourself out there and trying to promote the book and making sure that the word gets out is something that I try to do to the best of my ability, but it definitely doesn't come as easy as writing. I love fantasy. I love that it is so flexible as a genre, and it's actually lots of fun to write. As a writer of fantasy, you get to create whatever world you want, whatever universe you want. I think as long as you're logical and consistent, the sky's the limit, and that gives you a lot of flexibility. I love the idea about mixing regular, everyday things and turning them special, and mixing magic in places where they can be surprising. So I'm a very big fan of magical realism. I think that's also been a big influence in my writing. But even though I love lots of different genres, and I actually read a lot of different genres, I can't imagine writing anything that fantasy. That's a difficult question, but I think it's something that authors have to consider before they publish any book. We know that some bad reviews are expected. Of course, as writers, books are our babies, and we would love for everyone to love our baby. It's just not a very realistic thing. And I read books that I don't enjoy, and some of them are great books. They're just not to my taste. So I think to expect that some of those reviews are going to be bad is going to help. And on the other hand, I think if there's anything productive, anything constructive that can be taken out of those, of course, I will try to incorporate them in my writing for the future. But ultimately, I think what it tells me is that I'm hitting a wide enough range of the population where it's going to be representative, and there are going to be some folks who are just not going to enjoy my type of story. So, of course, I would love for my book to be wildly successful, and I really, really hope you guys are gonna love this story. But I think for me, I wrote this particular story because when I was young, I lived in a really big city, and I was surrounded by family, but I still felt alone, and in many ways I felt like I didn't fit in. Books made me feel better. To read about people who felt and thought like I did, to read about characters who were much closer to the way I was than anyone around me, made me feel better. So if anybody, any teenager out there, reads UNWRITTEN and feels better and feels happier after reading the story, then I think that's success. And I really, one of the things that I really hope is that I can put a smile on people's faces at the end of this book. I wanted to make sure that the story was fun and had moments of darkness and of brightness, but at the end, when you finish reading it, you feel happy. To be very frank, I don't think there's a lot of people could have told me that would have changed the path and the journey that I had to go through. Very often when we begin writing, we are given a lot of advice that, while correct, is very hard to implement and it's very hard to understand. So this is one of the things I feel like you have to do. You have to actually walk the path, and then one day after you've been writing for a while, you turn around and somebody asks you for advice and you find yourself answering with exactly the same advice you were given, only at this time you understand what it meant. So I think if I could travel back in time and I could talk to my younger self, I probably wouldn't believe myself. And whatever advice I would give myself would be probably, if not disregarded, not very useful. The only thing that I would say is I would urge myself to trust myself more, to follow my heart and my gut, and to be true to the characters and to the story that I knew I had to tell. Too often, we try to fit into a mold, and because we want to make sure that there's a place for our book and our story in the market, we try to be different from what we are. And ultimately, Unwritten is a book about book lovers. It's a book about people who are different, and it was bound to be different itself. Well, guys, that was the last question. Thank you so much for joining me for this Q&A. We have a giveaway. All the rules for it are going to be in the post, but I wanted to show you a couple of the things. You're going to be getting, of course, the physical copy of Unwritten. We have some character art. We have a tiny little keychain of Beatrix Alba, who's the character. We have charms and a few other cool things. So make sure you check that out and you sign up for the promotion. I also have an awesome pre-order campaign going on where you can get an exclusive enamel pin with the special the purchase of the book. And just for the Young Adult Buzz followers, we're going to do that for both the hardcover and the softcover. So go ahead and order the book, and you're going to get your pin in the mail. So thank you so much again, and have a wonderful day, guys.